CQ, 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 Kilo. Calling CQ. Kilo Delta 8 Sierra Unicorn Yankee. I got you over here. What's your location?
Okay, the TTH here. We're in the southeast corner of West Virginia. We're in a little small town called Peterstown. It's down in Monroe County. It sits right on the state line here next to Virginia. There, over.
QSL. In the SHTF, one of the important things of comms is going to be reaching out further than just VHF, UHF, which, you know, with the repeater, you might get 50 miles if you're lucky, if you can get everybody to coordinate. Obviously, you can listen in and a frequency scan and that kind of a thing to get information. But that's not really going to get you much further than maybe a county or two in whatever state you're living in. So, if possible, HF, high frequency, which would be, you know, obviously the 10 meter, 20 meter, 40 meter, 80, 160, 15, all that stuff, depending on the band, whether it be 10, 20, 40, etc. You'll be able to, at the very least, listen either, you know, various different states, what's going on, possibly various different countries. For example, on 10 meters, right now I'm only technician class, getting ready to test for general. On 10 meters, I've talked to people in the Caribbean, people in California, the clip before this, a guy in West Virginia. So whether you're communicating with people at those longer distances or just listening in and kind of, you know, flipping through the bands, scanning the bands to find out information, high frequency FHF and HF radio is going to be pretty important to know what's going on in the nation as a whole. So out here in the woods, I went ahead and strung up what I made, basically I made a 3-band dipole and just strung it up in some trees. Just used, I think it was 14 gauge wire from Home Depot. Got this green stuff. It's pretty rigid. I don't remember if it's solid core, copper core, or whatever. But I don't know if you can see, I've got it strung up in the tree. The longest of the dipole legs is, let's see, I got 10, 20, and 40. So that'd be the 40 meter, and I have an insulator up there and some paracord, you know, tied to the insulator and pulling it tight. And as you come on down here, you can see that wire. It hits this first little piece of PVC. I don't know if it's 1/2 inch or 3/4. But then that's where it starts the 20 meter dipole there. And of course paracord there, pulling it tight. As we travel on down, and we see it hits the 10 meter. And to measure these things out and get a rough estimate, if you don't already know, you're gonna take 468 as a good starting point and divide that by the frequency you want to hit. Like for example, for 10 meters, you're going to take 468 divided by the middle of the 10 meter band for technician class, which would be 28.4 megahertz. So the math on that's going to give you whatever length that is for the total dipole. Of course, divide it in half and make it that many inches. So, but there's the 10 meter start. And then we go down to a 6 meter, which that's obsolete. I'm not really going to use that. I believe my Yaesu 857D, I'll have to read up and be sure, but I believe the 6 meters comes out of the VHF, UHF antenna port, so that's irrelevant because this is all running to the HF antenna port on my Yaesu 857D. 4-inch, I believe it is, PVC, put some caps on there, and I ran some copper strip, which actually has places, actually it's a copper bar, it's like a little skinny copper bar that I got from Home Depot. And I got some really small grounding strips, kind of like the ones you see on the house where you hook the big wire to the big copper pole. I got some really small ones. I went ahead and just put connectors on each one of these ends of these wires and screwed them onto the copper. So I got a good connection there. And then that's connecting all of those together. And inside of there, I have a ballon mounted inside. It's all watertight, weatherproofed. And I cut a hole in the bottom of this PVC and just ran the end of the ballon out there. So there's my PL259 connector coming down in here to my coax. And of course, that's going to run down into wherever I'm running comms at, which could be the camper, or it could be Shelter Logic thing I got coming out. So that handles HF, so you'll be able to get in and listen all over. And you know, you need to read up a little bit on the HF band. Some of them have different distances, and if you don't know about HF, for the most part, the radio signal travels up into space, into the atmosphere, otherwise the ionosphere. And depending on the layers there in the ionosphere and the solar conditions and things, it travels up and bounces almost like you throw a tennis ball up to a high parking garage, and it bounces down and comes down kind of somewhere. So you don't get to predict where it comes down per se. But anyway, study up on HF. That'll let you reach out either to, depending on the band, you know, like on 10 meter, I reach out to the Caribbean and California, like I mentioned, West Virginia, obviously before. But you just don't know where you're going to wind up. The 20 meter, if I'm not mistaken, I'll have to look at my notes. It's either 20 or 40, tends to be, you know, you get some more regional stuff, so statewide or close to your state. But I'm only at 2.5 months as far as a ham license, so you know, I don't have all this stuff committed to memory, so check it out. But nonetheless, between those bands, you should be able to get information across the country, or on in your state or in your region. But moving on to UHF, VHF, this antenna is what it's all about. The official, you want to look for the official Slim Jim antenna. You want the VHF, UHF, comes with a choice of a 10-foot or a 15-foot line coming out of it. And what I did is I just took some paracord, tied it to the end of that thing. Let me get out of the sun here a little bit. And tossed it up in the tree. I think it's about 30 foot. And went ahead and pulled it up there. And I don't know if you can see it. Let me zoom in. Yeah, there it is up there. It's really hard to see the brush, but anyway, it's up there a good ways. VHF and UHF, that thing does an outstanding job. I strung that up there and hung a little Baofeng 8-watt on that thing, and I was talking to the repeater 50 miles away to guys, you know, pretty good signal, about 50 mile away repeater. I just hunkered down here on the ground with a little Baofeng, you know, dropped down to one knee, chatting up a storm with these guys. So I did a pretty good job. You want to be sure to know what connector you're getting with it when you order it from the official Slim Jim site. Normally they send them with a small SMA connector, and it's the one that fits most handheld transceiver antennas. The Baofengs are retarded, even though everybody has them, so keep that in mind. If you have a Baofeng, it has the opposite, whether it's a male or a female, of what every other, for the most part, antenna on a handheld transceiver has. So this one came with the one that fits most other handhelds, doesn't fit the Baofeng. So this little SMA jack to SMA jack coupler, get that from Radio Shack. And basically it's just a barrel, a threaded barrel. So that goes into the one end of the antenna line, and then that screws into the Baofeng, into the, you know, the female threads in there. And then you can hook this Slim Jim up directly to that, and that's what I did. But in this case, since I'm going to be running everything into basically a wooded ham shack, Radio Shack also makes this adapter, which goes from, you can see it there, but from that little small SMA and converts it into a PL259, SO239, whatever, you know, full-size RG58 coax. You can see that. And then basically I run that into my rural ham shack on the go, getting the heck out of Dodge ham shack. So hopefully that helps somebody. But in that situation, to build this thing, it didn't cost much. I mean, PVC, some wire, the ballon cost probably the most of anything. And then just time, me and my buddy jumping up on a ladder and stringing this thing out. Actually, here in a second, it's pretty close to tune on some of the bands. I'm gonna get my my antenna tuner out here in a minute. Go ahead and see if I can single-handedly trim some of these things down to be resonant exactly where I want them to be. So there's communications in the woods. Moving on to tuning the 40 meters. I want to hit it right in the middle at, basically, I'm getting at 7.2375. which for 40 meters I want to get right in between the general class, which that's smack dab in the middle, 7.2375. Appreciate the junk equipment on eBay, dudes. It only happens on the battery. This thing showed up and the batteries were rolling around inside. It was a hot mess. Oh, come on. Good job, MFJ. Okay, Jiminy Christmas. 72375, I said. So 72375, we'll call that good. We're a 1-to-1 SJBR, just a little over. So if we move on to this freaking MFJ, man, I'm telling you. 7.175, dropping down here. We're still, man, I mean, 1.1 to 1 SWR. If we go up to 7.3, still right down there. If I wanted to drop way down to the extra class at 7.125, still not bad. Well, you know, 1.37 to 1. So that'll do on 40 meters. My only issue is, you know, I got pretty lucky on this because none of these I had to really trim based on the measurements that I did and just sheer luck. 468 divided by the frequency equals the total length of the dipole divided by 2, and then tying knots in them. It's anybody's guess, but I got lucky, except for the 10 meter, which is the one I probably want to use the most. I've got to extend that a little bit, and I didn't bring the couplers with me, so I don't know. We'll see. I don't really want to tear into this thing and wire those wires in there, so I'm not sure how I'm going to extend them, but I'll think about it a little bit. I'm trying to remember where that thing was resonant at. Actually, it was pretty bad on 10 meters. I want to be 10 meters. I want to be at 28.4. Yeah, I mean, I'm SWR 2 1/4 to 1. Looks like it's a resonant. It's resonant like 29.1 megahertz, which is you know, it's within the band, I guess, technically for general class and extra, but yeah, I don't even know. 28.4. If we go down to the bottom of the band, 28.3. Yeah, that's not gonna work.